Hello all dear students, welcome to online learning session. Today we are going to understand Science NCERT chapter number 2, Nutrition in Animals. So in standard 7 chapter number 2, Nutrition in Animals, in these chapters we are going to cover these points: different ways of taking food, digestion in humans, digestion in grass eating animals, feeding and digestion in amoeba. So in this chapter we are going to understand about the nutrition, the way they take food intake, mode of taking food. Second, we will also understand digestion in human, how the digestion process works in human, digestion in grass eating animal, how the digestion is possible, or how digestion works in grass eating animals, and feeding and digestion, mode of eating, what it feeds and digest, how digestion takes place in amoeba and what it eats, feeding in amoeba. So these are the points we are covered in this chapter. You have learnt in chapter 1 that plants can prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis, but animals cannot. We had understand nutrition in plants. In that chapter we had understand green plants synthesize their own food, isn't it, with the help of a photosynthesis process, which is a unique process on the earth. Now, but animals cannot. There are different modes of nutrition in plants which we had understood in chapter 1. Animals get their food from plants, either directly or indirectly. We humans and animals depends on plants product directly or indirectly. Some animals eat both plants and animals. Now recall that all organisms, including humans, require food for growth, repair and functioning of the body. Not only animals but we humans also need food for the growth, maintenance of the body and for the repair and function of the body. So what is animal nutrition? Animal nutrition includes nutrient requirement, mode of intake of food and its utilization in the body. So these are the three basic aspects we can say. Very first one, mode of nutrition और nutrient requirement, the body को जो nutrient चाहिए होता है वो उसके लिए. Then second, mode of intake of food. There are different ways, modes of eating of food in different animals, and utilization in the body for the growth, maintenance of the body or for the energy to the different activities. So these are the three aspects which animal nutrition includes, that different nutrient requirement, mode of intake of food and utilization in the body. Now you had already studied in class 6 that food contains many of the components. Recall that, come on, which are the components of food? Major components: carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals. Apart from that, there are dietary fibers and water which are essential for the body. So these are the major components of the food. So the components of food such as carbohydrates, we had understand carbohydrates gives energy for daily activities, isn't it? And the sources of carbohydrates are sugar, wheat, rice, potato, etc., isn't it? So carbohydrates is actually a complex substance. These complex substance cannot be utilized as such. We can take, but it cannot be utilized as such as we are taking. So they are broken down into simpler substance. The carbohydrates are broken down into simpler substance. The breakdown of complex substances or breakdown of complex component into food, for food into the simpler one is called a digestion. So we can say that, suppose this is a complex substance of carbohydrate, okay, it's joined but complex process and it's formed in a simpler one, it's So we can say the simpler substances from complex to simpler substance, and this process is known as digestion. So basically the components of food such as carbohydrate are complex substances, so it needs to be formed in a simpler way. So these substances are turned into a simpler way by the process digestion is called digestion process. Now let us understand 2.1 different ways of taking food. Which are the animals take the food? What are the different ways of taking food? So in this 2.1 different ways of taking food, let us understand this 2.1 activity. Now this activity based on what type of food and mode of feeding of the following animals. Write down your observations in the given table over here. Table 2.1 given various modes of feeding. Okay, these are the animals given over here. Name of the animal, what kind of food they prefer, and mode of feeding, how they take their nutrition. So let's understand this. So the very first animal in this table is snail. Now snail. Now kind of food, what type of food it eat? Leaf, small insects, and the mode of feeding is known as a scraping. उसके फूड इंटेक का तरीका क्या होता है? स्क्रैपिंग. द अनदर एनिमल वी आर हैविंग ओवर हियर इज ए एंट. नाउ एंट वी ऑल नो ant eats sweet substance, even flour, so that is their mode, and chewing. The next we are having in this table is eagle. We all know eagle, small birds, rats, and mode of feeding is capturing, tearing, and swallowing. So next bird, hummingbird. Hummingbird suck nectar from flowers and small insects, and mode of feeding is sucking. Same over here, lice or mosquito, both blood, and mode of feeding is sucking. The next, butterfly and housefly. We all know suck nectar, so mode of feeding is sucking. And last we are having over here housefly. We all know the housefly sits on a sweet substance or some of the solid dirty particles or dirty substance they sit, and its mode of feeding is sucking. So these are the different animals. Now from this table what we had understand, we understand that these different animals have different kinds of food for the nutrition, and their mode of feeding is differ. This varies from each other. They are not in a same way. So we can say that the different animals like different food, and the mode of taking food into the body varies in different animals. Now over here it is an amazing fact is given regarding a starfish. Now starfish feeds on animals covered by hard shell of calcium carbonate. We all know that the shell of the starfish is covered by a hard shell which is made up of calcium carbonate. After opening the shell, the starfish pops out its stomach through its mouth. It is a very interesting fact that after opening that shell, the starfish pops out its stomach from its mouth. So to eat the small and soft insects inside the shell. The stomach then goes back into the body, and the food is slowly digestion. So this is about the table 2.1, and this activity shows that the different animals have take different types of food, and that vary in mode of feeding. Now let us understand 2.2, digestion in humans. Now we take in food through the mouth, digest and utilize it. So we can say the mode of taking of food is from mouth. The unused part of the food are deficited. Now have you ever wondered what happens to the food inside the body? The food passes through a continuous canal which begins at the buccal cavity and ends at the anus. So the canal can be divided into various compartments. So digestion in human takes place in the various compartments, and we humans take food from the mouth. Our mode of feeding is chewing. We chew the food, isn't it? So these all are the compartments: mouth and buccal cavity, food pipe, or we can say esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, anus. Now is it not a very long path? Isn't it? This is a very long path where food travels. These parts together forms a alimentary canal. These all the compartments, or we can say parts together makes the alimentary canal, or we can say digestive tract. The food components gradually get digested as food travels from through the various compartments. The food start digestion from the mouth, and it goes on to the various compartments and hence over it start digestion in the various compartments. So the inner walls of the stomach and the small intestine and the various glands associated with the canal. These only are not the compartments or the parts. Apart from there are various associated glands which makes a part in the digestive tract. They are salivary glands, liver and pancreas. So these are the associated canal glands which are associated with this canal digestive tract. So the digestive juices convert a complex substance of food into simpler one. कोई भी फूड का जो कॉम्प्लेक्स सब्सटेंस होता है डाइजेशन ट्रैक उसको सिंपलर वे में कन्वर्ट कर देता है, बना देता है. सो द डाइजेस्टिव ट्रैक एंड द एसोसिएटेड ग्लैंड्स टुगेदर फॉर्म्स अ डाइजेस्टिव सिस्टम. These all are the digestive parts and associated glands together makes a digestive system. Now let us know what happens to the food in the different parts of the compartment. So let's start with the journey of digestion. Now let us understand mouth and the buccal cavity, the very first compartment of the digestion in humans. The food starts from the mouth and the buccal cavity. Now food taken into the body through the mouth. This process of taking food into the body is called ingestion. So we can say what is the ingestion process? Taking of food in the mouth. So we chew the food with the teeth and break down in the mechanically into very small pieces. Now each tooth is rotated and separated socket in the gums. You can look in the figure also. Now our teeth vary in appearance and perform different functions. Accordingly they are given different names. Now over here activity 2.2, a table 2.2 is given about the teeth you have to identify. Okay, now let's see. Table 2.2 over here, type of teeth, number of teeth present in both upper jaw and lower jaw as well as total number of teeth in particular socket. Now very first teeth we are over here cutting and biting teeth. So lower jaw there are 4 teeth and upper jaw there are 4 teeth and total 8 teeth. Now what is a cutting and biting? With the help of such teeth we can cut or bite. So the function we can say its type of teeth we can say incisor and its function is to cutting and biting. The next function we are having over here piercing and tearing. So that type of teeth are known as canine. There are total 2 in lower jaw and 2 in upper jaw. So total 4 we are having in all. The next we are having a premolar type of teeth and its function is to chew. That are 4 and total 8. Last we are having molar teeth which grinds the food, which make the food very grindly particles. That are 6 and 6, so total 12. So there are total 32 teeth present in a mouth. So we can say that this with the help of teeth the food breaks down into mechanically. Now over here a milk teeth and a permanent teeth, a small information is given. Now do you remember about the falling of your teeth some years ago? The first set of teeth grows during the infancy period when you are small, isn't it? And the fall off at the age between 6 to 8. Now when you are infant the teeth starts coming and that teeth in the time of that infancy teeth will fall at around 6 to 8 years. Now these are termed as a milk teeth. The second set that replaces them are the permanent teeth. The permanent teeth may last throughout the life or fall off during old age or due to some dental issues. So these are the teeth we can say incisor, type of the teeth we can say incisor, canine, premolar and molar. And the food taking process in the mouth is known as a ingestion process. Now our mouth has a salivary glands. We had understood about the different glands which are associated with it. The very first gland we are having over here is a salivary gland. Now salivary gland is present in our mouth which secretes saliva. Now let us find out how. Over here 2.4, the food you have to take a 2 test tube, label them A and B. And in test tube A, put some teaspoon of boiled rice. Or in the test tube B, keep some teaspoon of boiled rice after chewing. So over here you have to take a boiled rice and another set of that test tube you need to boiled chewed rice. In 3 to 5 minutes, add 3-4 ml of water in both the test tubes. Now pour 2-3 drops of iodine solution. Now we had understood about this iodine solution is used to check the presence of carbohydrates or starch in a food. Now observe it. Why there is a change in the color in the test tube? Now we can say that the saliva breaks down starch into sugar. What saliva does? Saliva breaks down starch into sugar. Complex substance makes in a simpler form. And over here, with the teeth, we had understood this food breaks down mechanically. Now what tongues do? The tongue is a fleshy muscular organ which is attached at the back to the floor of the buccal cavity. It is free of the front end and can be moved in all directions. Now let us understand the function of tongue. The very first we can say we use for talking. Besides it mixes saliva, just now we had understand. And third we can say it identifies the different taste buds and it helps in the swallowing food, or we can say it makes the food soft so one can easily swallow. So we also taste food with our tongue. It has a different taste buds, isn't it? Sweet taste, salty taste, sour taste and bitter taste. We can find out with the position of the taste buds. From that activity you can also do. You just try to taste with the different substances, put it in a tongue. So we can say that tip side sweet, salty, then sour and last bitter. But spicy taste is not produced, isn't it? Spicy taste cannot be, it is not produced in the taste buds. It is just a signal to carry from the nerves. Now this is about the mouth and the buccal cavity, and we had understand how the food starts digestion. So we can say the digestion starts from the mouth. And the very first component, the saliva breaks down starch into sugar, and tongues make the food soft, and different taste buds are present over there. So it identifies taste and makes the food soft and helps to swallow the food, and also mix saliva in the food to makes the breaks down the starch into the sugar. Now let's move towards the another compartment of the digestive system. The next compartment we are having the food pipe or esophagus. We all know the swallowed food passes into the food pipe or esophagus. You can just look at the picture also. Now here Paheli wants to know how the food moves in the opposite direction during vomiting. We had understand that the swallowing of food is done in the esophagus, through the esophagus, isn't it? It takes the food down. Then how we vomited? Now Paheli wants to know this reason. Now the food is pushed down by the movement of the wall which is present in the food pipe. Now actually this movement takes place throughout the alimentary canal and pushes the food downward. At the times the food is not accepted by your stomach. Sometimes what happens, certain foods does not accepted by the stomach. So what happens? You vomited, isn't it? It comes out, it moves forward and comes out in the form of a vomit. Now try to recall such incidents where you vomited certain food items before after eating it. So this is the function of esophagus. After the food is chewed in the buccal mouth, and that swallowed that food enters into the food pipe. Now which makes the food down. It enters in the next compartment. Now let us understand. Now after the food moves in the esophagus, now the food enters into the stomach. Through esophagus the food enters into the stomach. This is the next compartment. Now see what activities happen in the stomach. The stomach is a thick walled bag. Its shape is like a flattened J, and it is a widest part of the alimentary canal. You can just look in the picture also. It receives food from the food pipe at one end and opens it into the small intestine at the other end. So we can say that at the one end it enters the food through the esophagus, and in the second end it enters the food into the intestine, small intestine. Now what happens in the stomach? The inner lining of the stomach secretes mucus, hydrochloric acid and digestive juices. Now you might be surprised Why hydrochloric acids? Acids are in the stomach. Let us understand. Hydrochloric acid plays an important role in our body. Let's see. Now first, what mucus do? Mucus protects the inner lining of the stomach. Now this hydrochloric acid kills many bacteria that enters along with the food. So it kills these certain bacteria which enters along with the food. And that is the reason we should not continuously talk while eating the food, because when we talk and eat, the different bacteria and germs may enter in our body. Now, and makes the medium in the stomach acidic and helps the digestive juices to act. Now the digestive juices break down proteins into the simpler ones. So we can say that digestive juice in what do? It breaks down protein into simpler substances. So these three activities are performed in the stomach. Mucus, which protects the inner wall, inner lining of the stomach. Hydrochloric acid, which kills the bacteria which enter along the food and makes the medium acidic in the stomach, which helps the digestive juice to break down proteins into the simpler substances. So this is a function of stomach, which is the widest part of the alimentary canal. Now you can see in the book that Alex St. Martin's shotgun wound. Now the working of the stomach was discovered by a strange incident. Now how this occurred? By the very strange accident, the working of stomach, which is unknown. Now in 1822, a man named Alex St. Martin was badly hit by a shotgun. The bullet had seriously damaged the chest wall and made a hole in his stomach. He was brought to an American army doctor, that is William Beaumont. Now doctor saved the patient, but he could not close the hole properly, which is left in bandage. The Beaumont took it as a great opportunity to see the activities happening inside the stomach through the hole. So he made some wonderful observations. So what are the observations? Beaumont found that the stomach was churning its food. The stomach was churning a food. Its wall secrete a fluid which is called the digestive food. So this wall, we can say digestive juices or mucus are there. It also observed that the end of the stomach opens into the small intestine only after the digestion food inside the stomach is completed. So we can say simpler breakdowns of proteins into the simpler substances, this happens in the stomach. So this is a very interesting incident which is shared in a book and which is observed by a army doctor, that is a William Beaumont. So he made those observations that in stomach, the wall of stomach churning the food. Now let us understand the another compartment of the digestive system in humans, that is a small intestine. After the stomach, one ends open in the stomach, the food enters into the stomach, the small intestine through the stomach. Now let us understand about the small intestine. Now the small intestine is highly coiled and is about 7.5 meters long. Approximately the size of small intestine is 7.5 meter long. Now what this do? It receives the secretions from the liver and pancreas. Besides, the wall also secretes different juices. Now the very first understand about the liver. Now what is a liver? Liver is a reddish brown gland situated in the upper part of the abdomen on the right side. It is the largest gland in the body. So we can say liver is the largest gland in the human body. Now what it do? It secretes a bile juice that is stored in a sac-like structure which is known as a gallbladder. And what this do? Bile helps in the digestion of fats. So this is stored in a sac-like structure called gallbladder, and bile plays an important role in the digestion of fats. Fats में digestion के help करता है. Now let us understand about the another gland, that is a pancreas. The pancreas is a large cream colored gland located just below the stomach, and the pancreatic juices act as a carbohydrates, fats and proteins, and which changes into simpler form. So this is the function of pancreas, which act on carbohydrate, fats and proteins and makes them into simpler forms. And liver, which is secretes bile juice, which plays an important role in the digestion of fats, and it is stored in a structure known as a gallbladder. Now what happened? The small intestine actually are divided into three parts: duodenum, jejunum and ileum. We can say that partly digested food now reaches the lower part of the small intestine, where the intestinal juices completes the digestion of all the compartment, isn't it? Now the lower part of the small intestine, we can say that all the digestion of the components takes place. The carbohydrates get broken into the simpler substance such as glucose. Now glucose is another form of carbohydrates, and fats into fatty acids and glycerol, and proteins into amino acids. So these are just simpler substances which broken into simpler sugars such as glucose, and fats into fatty acid and glycerols, and proteins into amino acids. So this is the partially digested food reaches into the lower part of the small intestine where this activity happen. Now let's understand what happens in the small intestine, how the food is absorbed. Let's understand it. Now let us understand absorption in the small intestine, how the food is absorbed in the small intestine. The digested food can now pass into the blood vessels in the wall of the intestine. Now this process is known as absorption, where the digested food pass into the blood vessels, different blood vessels in the wall of intestine, and that process is known as absorption. The inner wall of the small intestine have thousands of structures, or we can say finger-like outgrowths. They are known as villi. Now we can say the villi increases the surface area for the absorption of the digested food. Now these villi helps in the absorption of the, which increase the surface area for the absorption of the digested food. ये जगह बनाता है वहाँ पे कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा digested food का absorption वहाँ पे हो. Now each villus has a network of thin and small blood vessels which is close to its surface. So the surface of the villi absorbs digested food material, and these absorbed substances are transported via blood vessels to the different organs of the body, and where they used to build up a complex substances such as the proteins required by the body. Now this process is known as assimilation, where the certain complex substances are needed for the requirement of the body. For example, we can say proteins need to build up a body, proteins required by the body. That process is known as a assimilation process. Now what happens in the cell? In the cell, glucose breakdowns with the help of oxygen into carbon dioxide and water, and energy is released. That are, we can say, respiration takes place, energy diffuse होना, release होना वहाँ पे, with the help in the presence of oxygen, with the help of carbon dioxide and water, energy is released, and the food that remains undigested and unabsorbed enters into the next compartment of the small intestine, that is large intestine. So this is about the small intestine absorption and assimilation process, which are in the, we can say, the food spends maximum time in the small intestine, and all the majority of the food components are digested in the small intestine, and the undigested part of the food which is moved to the large intestine of the body. Now let us understand about the large intestine. Now the large intestine is the wider and shorter than small intestine. We all know the name is large intestine, but actually it is small in the length as compared to small intestine. So we can say large intestine is wider and shorter than small intestine. It is about 1.5 meter long, and its function is to absorb water and some salts from the undigested food which is entered from the small intestine, and the remaining waste passes into rectum and remains there as a semi-solid fecal. Now rectum is a bag where the semi-solid materials are collected, we can say waste material, and the fecal matter which is removed through time to time, or we can say removed from the anus through the ejection process. So we can say the removing of the fecal matter through our anus is known as a ejection process. So this is about the large intestine, where we can say that its function is to absorb water and salts from the undigested food and makes them stored in a semi-solid fecal matter in the rectum, and through the rectum it passes into the through the anus, and this process is known as a ejection process. So we can say basically ingestion, taking food in mouth, and ejection, removing waste material from the body, is known as a ejection process. Now after understanding the digestion in humans, now let's understand the digestion in grass eating animals, how the digestion takes place in grass eating animals. Now have you ever observed cow, buffaloes and other grass-eating animals chew continuously even when they are not eating. Actually, they are quickly swallow the grass and store it in a part of a stomach called rumen. वो स्टमक का एक पार्ट होता है उसका जिसको बोलते हैं रूमेन, वहाँ पे वो स्टोर कर लेता है. Here the food gets partially digested which is known as a curd. But here Paheli wants to know why these animals cannot chew food properly at the time they had taken it. जब वो लेते हैं तभी उसी टाइम पे क्यों नहीं च्यू करते हैं. Bujo wants to know why we cannot digest cellulose like the cattle do. Now let's find out this answer in this topic. So we had understand this. They quickly swallow the grass and store it in a part of a stomach which is known as a rumen, and when which is partially it is called a curd. And here the which foods gets partially digested, and this digested food is known as a curd. Now but later the curd returns to the mouth in the small piece. These curds return into the mouth again in a small piece, and animals chew it this very peacefully. Now this process is known as rumination, and certain such animals are known as ruminants. So we can say that this process are different in animals as above from the humans. Apart from the humans, the process in digestion in grass eating animals is different. What they do, they chew, they swallow, then store it in a stomach which is known as a rumen, but then the partially digested food returns to the mouth in the form of a curd, and the small pieces are chewed peacefully, and that process are known as a rumination process, and see these animals are known as ruminants. Now here Bujo asked why we cannot digest cellulose like cattle do. Plants के grass में cellulose होता है. Why we humans cannot digest this cellulose? Why we cannot take grass for a long time? The grass is rich in cellulose, which is a type of a carbohydrate. Cellulose is another form of carbohydrate. One is you had understand about a starch, and about a cellulose we can also say it is a form of a carbohydrate. In ruminants like cattle, deer, etc., bacteria is present in a rumen which helps in the digestion of cellulose. So we can say there are certain bacteria which are present in a rumen, which is rumen, that is a part of a stomach in a grass eating animals, where this helps in the digestion of cellulose. Many animals including humans cannot digest cellulose. Now animals like horses, rabbits, etc. have a large sac-like structure called cecum between the esophagus and the small intestine, where the cellulose of the food is digested here by the action of certain bacteria which are not present in humans. हमारे stomach पे ऐसे bacteria नहीं होते हैं, but these and ruminants are having certain bacteria which helps them to digest cellulose. So we can say these animals which possess a digestive system, but they are very different process of digestion in a ruminants animals, or we can say grass eating animals apart from human. So now let us understand feeding and digestion in amoeba. Now we all know amoeba is a microscopic single celled organism. There are multicellular and unicellular organisms are there. Among them amoeba is a single cell, or we can say unicellular organism, which is generally found in the pond of water. Now amoeba has a cell membrane, a rounded dense nucleus, and many small bubbles like vacuoles. You can just see in the picture, and in its cytoplasm we can see the different organelles, vacuoles are there. Now amoeba constantly changes its shape and position. It pushes out one or more finger-like projections, which we can say pseudopodia, or we can also say false feet, which helps in the capture of food. So we can say amoeba uses pseudopodia, or with the help of a false feet, it capture of food and it helps in the movement. So with the pseudopodia it do only to work capturing of food, and for movement it uses pseudopodia for these two tasks. Now animals like we can say amoeba feeds on microscopic organism. Amoeba feeds on small microscopic organism which is found around it. When it senses food, it pushes out pseudopodia or false feet and around the food particles and engulfs it. When it senses a food, it turns out that pseudopodia around it and engulfs the food particle or that organism. Now the food becomes trapped in food vacuoles. You can see in the picture the food vacuoles are there. Now the digestive juices are secreted in the food vacuole. They are suck the digestive juices and they act on the food and break down into the simpler substances. We had understand na, complex substances converts into simpler substance for the digestion easy. In the same way over here in the amoeba, that complex substance will transfer into simpler one for the easy digestion, and the gradually digested food is absorbed, and the absorbed substance are used for the growth, maintenance and multiplications, and the undigested residue of the food which is also removed by the vacuoles, which is expelled out by the vacuolar, which is we can say ejected waste. You just look in the picture also. So this is about the feeding and digestion in amoeba. So in this we had understand the basic process of food and releasing of energy is same in all the animals. In a later chapter you will learn about the transport of food absorbed by the intestine to the various parts of the body. We had understood in this chapter the absorption of food and assimilation process, but how the food transport is of blood, vessels and different body parts will understand in this chapter. So this is about the feeding and digestion in amoeba. Now let us revise the what points which we have learnt in this chapter. So the points we have learnt that animal nutrition includes nutrient requirement, mode of intake of food and its utilization in the body. The human digestive system consists of alimentary canal and the secretory glands. It consists of the buccal cavity, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine which is ending in rectum and anus. The main digestive glands which secretes digestive juices are salivary gland, the liver and the pancreas. The stomach wall and the wall of small intestine also secretes a certain digestive juices. The modes of feeding vary in different organisms. Nutrition is a complex process which involving ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion, which is we can say ejected waste can be removed. Now digestion of carbohydrates like starch begin in buccal cavity. The digestion of protein starts in the stomach. The bile secretes from the liver and the pancreatic juices from the pancreas and certain digestive juices from the intestinal wall complete the digestion of all the components of the food in the small intestine. So we can say that all the components of the food is digested in the small intestine, and the digested food is absorbed in the blood vessels from the small intestine, that is we can say, and the absorbed substances are transported to the different parts of the body, and water and salts are absorbed from the undigested food in the large intestine. After that the food enters into the large intestine. Now the undigested and unabsorbed residues are expelled out of the body as a fecal matter through the anus, and that process is known as egestion. The grazing animals like cows, buffaloes and deer are known as ruminants. They quickly ingest, swallow the leafy food and store it in the rumen, which is a part of a stomach, and later the food returns to the mouth and the animals chews it peacefully, which is known as the cud. Amoeba ingests its food with the help of its false feet, or we can say pseudopodia. The food is digested in the food vacuole, and that undigested part is also expelled out from the vacuoles. So this is about this chapter in which we had understand nutrition in animals. So we can say that the way the mode of taking of food is different in every organism, but the process of digestion also differ in other, but the main purpose is to gain energy through different process. So I hope you understand this chapter very well. Thank you everyone.